to questions, and we'll go to Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief so we can get on to DPS because I know there's a lot of interest in that. Could you just briefly outline the process that the PBO undertakes to seek information from government departments and agencies to ensure that your costings are as accurate and robust as possible?
Thanks, Senator Patterson. Sam Reinhart, Parliamentary Budget Officer. So we have a number of MOUs across most of the major departments and agencies, and we also have a set of protocol documents which were established some years ago. Both of those ensure that we're able to go to departments and ask for pretty much any data or information that they are able to provide us. There are some constraints around national security issues and commercial in confidence. Broadly, we're able to access a very wide range of data, and as I said, models. I think we hold the largest number of models across government because we access models on everything from HECS to PBS to Medicare to tax models and data as well. So we have a process where we will go to departments after each fiscal update, so after my EFO and budget, and we'll ask for what we call a standing information request, where we have a set of information that we ask for regularly, which we know we will need for costing. So things like tax data or the major fiscal indicators data, expenditure data that we know we'll need. And then there's a separate information request process that we go through where I will write to a secretary and ask for a set of information where we need additional information that we haven't otherwise accessed.
So I want to go to the Election Commitments Report, which you published in June, and on one policy issue in particular, on page 18, the ECR states, and I quote, "The total public service wage bill, excluding defence, is forecast to fall by around 3% over the next 4 years, while average wages are assumed to grow by about 10%. The implied fall on the staffing level of around 13% corresponds to 22,500, assuming the composition of staff classifications remains broadly unchanged." What was the methodology that the PBO used to calculate this cut in the public service by 22,500?
So essentially, as you've said, Senator Patterson, we take the data in Budget Paper 1, Statement 9, Note 7, which shows the salary and wages expenses. We then take that. So there's no, to be clear, there's no ASL that's published beyond the current year. We take that information. We then apply the wage cost index, which is Table 7, Table A.7, which is in Budget Paper 3 on page 130 of the latest budget. That obviously shows the expected wage increases over time. We then overlay that over the wage and employee expenses. We take out defence because that's usually got some more volatility in it and less relevant for the policies that we were looking at. And then we apply that to the wages and salaries and work out what the expected or anticipated number of ASL would be remaining.
So do you have a breakdown of that 22,500 reduction in ASL over the forwards? Can you break it down by each financial year for me?
I don't have that with me.
And certainly provided on notice.
Mr. Conn, if you could just please state your name and...
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Lewis Conn, Acting First Assistant Parliamentary Budget Officer. Yes, we certainly can provide it on notice. I do believe back in January we did publish a request for budget analysis, which did look at the cost to budget if the ASL levels were held fixed at that time, but that would have been on the MyEFO basis, not the latest budget basis.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could take that on notice, that would be helpful, and provide that on notice. This issue has previously been pursued by Senator Hume, and we have asked Finance about this, and as you know, they dispute or disagree with your characterisation, so I just want to tease that out. Here's a quote from a recent Senate Estimates from the department. The government has made some commitments around the future of the public service, but in terms of what's actually in the budget books, in terms of the estimates, that relates to essentially the wages and salary expenses. Those figures, which are in BP1 on page 271, statement 9, are an aggregation of departments' assessments of what their departmental expenses they will spend on wages and salaries. At Finance, we aggregate those figures that each department provides us, and that is the best estimation of what their wages and salary expenses will be going forward. And they also said those expenses don't include and never have historically the actual wage increases agreed through the bargaining process, but we do index departmental expenses by wage cost indices, which take into account both general increases in the WPI and also CPI. How can you help me reconcile the contradiction between your advice and Finance's advice on this?
So I'm not sure there's a contradiction. I guess I'd say Finance looks at the wage and salary bill and publishes that as part of the budget process. They don't publish the ASL numbers, which is why we have had to back them out of the wages and salaries.
So in the ECR, then, effectively, we've got either an unfunded cost in the budget which will have to be met, or those reductions in ASL numbers will have to occur. Is that right?
So I think so. We understand that this is a pretty complex area, and so we have kind of undertaken both in the ECR, and we'll look at future work in this space to provide more clarity around what's actually happening in the budget. There is a chart, and I apologise as I know you won't have it in front of you. A chart in the ECR. Actually, if you do have the ECR, it's on page 18, figure 2.9, 2-9. I think that's the right chart, yeah. Which effectively shows that in every budget since 2000, and probably before if we look back further, there is a drop-off in departmental expenses over the forward estimates. It happens over and over again. It is a function of the fact that programs roll over and run out and aren't committed. Some programs go on forever. Some programs are committed for, say, a 4-year period, a 6-year period, a 10-year period. And so inevitably, when you look at the forward estimates, those programs run out over time.
Sure.
We have highlighted that in our recent medium-term budget outlook, that is always a pressure on future budgets.
I guess that's the point I'm trying to get to, is that we can't have it both ways. Either those savings are going to be realised in the budget papers and there is going to be that ASL reduction, or government will have to find money to prevent that ASL reduction. So either we can't trust the forward estimates as a true reflection of what the budget position is going to be, because the government won't allow those expiring programs to expire and those ASL cuts to be realised, or we have to accept there are going to be those ASL cuts. Isn't that fair?
I think it's fair to say that this has and will continue to be a pressure in future budgets that governments need to be aware of.
So they will have to find that money if they don't want to have those ASL reductions.
So in any program that is non-ongoing, that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, because that means that those forward estimates will be materially worse than what it was in the pre-election fiscal update.
As we've said, that is the case with any budget over the last 2 decades that we've looked at.
Because in the February estimates, when Senator Hume was asking these questions, the Department of Finance described your modelling as a hypothetical exercise, but it's not really hypothetical, is it?
Well, I guess we are saying this is how we would determine the ASL were we to... Oh, well, this is how we determine the ASL given the wage and salary numbers in the budget. So...
What's the PBO's role in reconciling public statements made by senior ministers during a campaign period with their costings?
So if we've got a publication on our website which highlights the cases where we will kind of step in and make a media statement and talk to members of Parliament or journalists, in fact, if the PBO is misrepresented. That is our role.
Yes, but if
that is consistent with our legislation as well.
Yes, but if a senior shadow minister or minister makes a public statement that, in government we will do X, in government we will do Y, but that's not reflected in their costings, doesn't that have to be reconciled in the ECR?
So in the that's a good point. In the ECR, where there is a statement that we consider it to be materially different from the PFO, and any statement that is made after the PFO that makes a material difference to that has not been made previously, and Finance and Treasury have not factored into their PFO, we would then do an ECR costing for.
So why isn't there an ECR costing on the government's commitments to maintain ASL levels, which they very clearly articulated throughout the campaign, particularly the Minister for Finance and Minister for Public Service, Senator Gallagher? She repeatedly said the government had no plans to reduce the ASL and, in fact, attacked the coalition for our proposal to do so.
So I guess in this case I would say, Senator, that any statement that was made after PFO was also made beforehand. You would have to put the same question to Treasury Finance. That was not seen as a commitment that warranted. So it was not seen as a material commitment that changed the underlying budget.
But, I mean,
I'm going to rotate the call in a minute if you
Thank you. I think you previously told Senator Hume in a costing that it would be about $11 billion to avoid this reduction. That sounds pretty material to me. I mean, I think Australians would be very shocked to learn that the government's policy at the election was to cut the public service by 22,000. I don't think any Australian who went to the ballot box would think that. So why hasn't that expense been booked in the ECR against the government's commitments?
The fact that it hasn't been booked in the ECR means we did not see it as a material commitment of government.
So the $11 billion commitment to maintain ASL is not material?
We did not see the statement of government as a material commitment.
Right. Well, I think $11 billion is material, and the government and any party shouldn't be able to have their cake and eat it too. You can't claim the savings from a reduced ASL but also say you're not going to reduce the ASL or in any other policy area, surely.
So, yeah, so I mean, we didn't see any material change to the budget bottom line following the PFO. We did not see a further commitment of government. So,
right, so it's your contention that the government was transparent about their plan to cut the public service by 22,500 at the election.
So, I think that's probably a misrepresentation of what our commitment was.
Clarify for me. I don't want to misrepresent you.
So we did not see the government as having made any commitment after the PFO that held the APS, that resulted in an increase in spend in the budget on ASL.
So all those times that ministers said we won't be cutting the public service, the Liberal Party are the ones that are cutting the public service, etc., they weren't material statements?
So we had understood the government was not intending to cut beyond what was in their budget, which was consistent with what was put in the PFO and put in the earlier budget.
Before the election, Finance repeatedly said that the government had no plans to have those cuts. Repeatedly. Senator Hume questioned them multiple times.
So if it had been considered to be a commitment, it would have been in the PFO.
Well, I don't think... I can't reconcile PFO with the government statements. Right? I mean, does anyone seriously think the government is about to start sacking 22,000 public servants?
Senator Patterson, those are questions for the government.
Well, I appreciate your point, President, but I'm trying to reconcile the statements of the government with the PBO, who has a job to reconcile the public statements made by all of us in a campaign context with the costings that we put out. And this seems to be like a glaring omission from the ECR, so that's why that question is to the PBO.
I think Ms Reinhardt has addressed your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.